All right, so great. Now I've kind of went over a little bit of what is Zapier. I've went over a little bit of how I actually use Zapier in my day-to-day business. And now guess what we're gonna do? Well, we're gonna go in and we're gonna make a Zap, all right? So to make a Zap, it's really, really simple. All right, so a couple things that you need to know here, all right, in your Zapier dashboard. You need to know how to make a Zap, and we're gonna do that. You also need to know that you can create folders, all right? So you can create some folders here, and these folders I really want to encourage you to use, all right? Before we start anything, whether you go through my chatbot training, whether you go through my ClickFunnels training, whether you go through my Zapier training, which is what we're on right now, before we dive too deep in anything, the very first thing that I want to stress to you is organization, all right? That is the very first thing that I want to stress to you, and organization starts from the beginning, all right? So if you don't start in a methodical way and figure out how you want to organize things, what's going to happen is as time goes by, you're going to get disorganized. And your time expenditure, the amount of time that you're gonna actually have to spend to go in and organize all the unorganized shit that you've accumulated for a month or 2 months or 3 months is going to be a pain in your ass. It's going to be so tedious that you will never do it, and you will never actually be able to get organized. And what you will find will happen is you're going to spend more time actually looking for your Zap than it's going to take you to change that Zap or even build that Zap, all right? So from the very beginning, I want you just to actually get organized. So in the effort of organization, we're gonna make a folder here, and it's going to be called Zapier Training Course. Just like that. See how easy that was? Now we've made a folder. It's called Zapier Training Course. It's gonna be all the way down here at the bottom. And you can see I have 0 Zaps in there. All right? So now we have a little bit of organization. We're gonna go in and we're gonna create our very first Zap. Like I said, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, make sure you ask your questions in your Q&A section, and then I'm gonna go over those questions. So let's go ahead and make a Zap. We do that just by clicking the button that says make a Zap. All right, great. Now, when you make a Zap, there are going to be 2 parts to your Zap. There's always 2 parts to your Zap. There's a trigger, and then there is at least one action or a series of actions, okay? So there's always has to be those 2 components. You can't have a Zap with a trigger only. You can't have a Zap with an action only. Every Zap has to have a trigger, and it has to have at least one action. If not, it's not a Zap. It's not going to work, all right? So what is a trigger? The trigger is the thing that actually causes your Zap to start and to actually execute and to process, okay? So lots of things can be triggers. It's very common that most applications that you find in Zapier are going to have both triggers and actions in the application, all right? So for example, let me just try to turn my AC on. For example, let's go with the good old Gmail, because everybody uses the good old Gmail. So let's go with Gmail, all right? Here's Gmail. We're gonna pick Gmail. And you can see here's a bunch of different triggers. So I can say, hey, when I get a new email, or when I get a new email matching a certain search, I'm just gonna say, hey, when I get a new email, all right? Then it's gonna ask me to connect my email account. I already have my email account connected here. So I'm gonna save and continue. And then it's gonna ask me to edit some options, you know, whether I want all inboxes or whatever. And I'm just gonna say, you know, hey, I want all of these things. Any email that I get, I wanna listen on any email that I get. Here's some information that I get right here. Here's the actual email that I got, all right? Bunch of crap in there. Looks like a whole bunch of crap. Anyways, I can continue. Now this is essentially my trigger, all right? Now this trigger, what that means is this entire process that you see over here, all right? This is my Zap, all right? So this entire process will start whenever I get a new email on that email address that I just connected, all right? So once I finish up the Zap, if anybody were to send me an email to that email address, then this Zap is going to start, and it's going to do whatever I ask it to do, All right. So hopefully you understand what a trigger is. You guys following me? Everybody understanding so far up until now? I'm assuming that everybody's getting this, right? All right. So your trigger is just the event that will start your Zap. All right. So the trigger is the event that's going to actually start the Zap. Now the actions are the things that you want to do whenever that trigger happens. All right. So some event happens. Let's say like Dave said, all right, let's say there's a Stripe failed payment, all right? So a payment got failed in your Stripe account. That is your event that triggers some process that you want to do, all right? Once that failed payment happens, what do you want to do? Those are your actions, all right? Maybe you want to send out an email to somebody that says, hey, are you broke? Why aren't you paying me? Your payment failed, all right? So those actions, you can have one action, you can have multiple actions. I'm even going to show you how now Zapier introduced a feature called Tasks, where you can break off into multiple actions and actually do multiple different things. All right. So hopefully everybody understands what triggers are. Hopefully you understand what actions are. Actions are the things that you actually want to do. All right. So like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Google Sheets, and we're just going to make a really simple, Zap. So I'm going to go to my Google Sheets. I'm going to create a new Google Sheet here. I'm going to call this Google Sheet. I'm going to call it Simple Zap. And I'm just going to put in here name, email. That's it. That's all that's going to go here. All right. And I'm going to call this sheet down here. Guess what I'm going to call it? I'm going to call it trigger. All right. And I'm going to create a new little sheet here. And I'm going to rename this to be action. All right. And I'm also going to put in here name. I'll just put an email and name. I'll just switch it up. All right. I'm just going to switch it up here and do kind of the reverse. All right. So now I've got this trigger and action. I'm going to go to Zapier. I'm just going to change this. All right. Now first I'm going to give this a title. It's always helpful if you give things meaningful titles that are descriptive, that kind of let you understand what the fuck is this app for. That way whenever you're going through and you're organized and you find out, you know, hey, I need to edit this, you can quickly understand what zaps you need to edit based on looking at their titles. All right, so I'm calling this one Simple Zap. All right, now keep in mind you can also add a note here, and in this note you can go in and you can just leave this note so that other people can understand what you're going to do here, or you can understand what you're going to do here in case you forget because you built this a year ago. All right, so I'm just going to copy data from one Google Sheet to another Google Sheet. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. All right, so now I've got a note there. So I'm going to go back up here, and I'm just going to change this to Google Sheets. All right, so I'm going to choose my app. That's my trigger, and Google Sheets is going to be my trigger. Now, I have lots of different options here. I can trigger whenever there's a new or updated row. I can trigger only when there's a new row, not whenever one's updated. So this is going to be a new or updated row. And this is going to be a new spreadsheet row. This will be a new worksheet. This will be a new spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and pick the new and updated row. All right. So if you don't have any accounts connected, like if you don't have a Google Sheet account connected, you're just going to want to connect your account. It's pretty simple. For each app, it's a little different for each app. With the Google app, you're just going to literally go in and authenticate your Google account that you want to listen to spreadsheets on. I've already authenticated mine, so I'm not going to authenticate it again, but that's all you would need to do. Mine's already authenticated right here. It's been added a year ago, so I'm just going to use that one. All right? So now you need to actually set up your options. You need to say, hey, what spreadsheet do you actually want to listen to? Well, I'm going to listen to that Simple Zap spreadsheet that we just created right here. All right? And then a worksheet. This also required what worksheet? Well, I'm going to listen to this trigger worksheet. All right. Now, this trigger column is saying, hey, remember we said that we want to listen to new spreadsheet, any new rows in a spreadsheet, or any row that has been updated. So you can go in and you can pick what column do I want to listen to updates on. I actually use this all the time to do email broadcast from Zapier. I'll actually upload a whole list of data to a Google spreadsheet, and then I'll go down through there and I'll actually have a row that will be a send flag, and I'll just update that flag every day to send out emails, a broadcast email, without actually having to have any type of autoresponder. All right. So really yourself, you can replace so many tools that you have with Zapier. If you want to spend a little bit of overhead time actually building your automations, you can literally do almost anything that you want. So I'm not going to pick any trigger column because I want to listen to both of them. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to pull in some samples here. Now, if you notice, Zapier is not actually getting any samples, and it's not getting any samples because I don't have any data here. So I'm going to put some data here, and this is going to be called Poopy Guy, and it's going to be guy@poop.com. All right. So now I've given Zapier some data to find, and now you can see that Zapier has found that data. And if I look, Zapier is giving me some information here. He's giving me not enough information, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to get more samples. And now Zapier is giving me all the information that I wanted. He told me what row it's on. Content hash, you don't really need to worry yourself with that sometimes. I mean, a lot of the apps will return you back extra data that is not actually going to be relevant to you and you're not going to want to use. But here's the data that we want. We want this guy at poop.com and we want this poopy guy. All right, so now we're just going to continue here. Now you can see that Zapier is saying, hey, we don't have any action steps. So let's add one now. Well, let's do it. Let's add an action step. We're also going to add Google Sheets. So we're just going to add Google Sheets right here. And you can see we have lots of different options. We can create spreadsheet rows, update spreadsheet rows, create one or more spreadsheet rows, create a spreadsheet column, delete rows, create a spreadsheet. We can look up data if we want. We're just going to create a spreadsheet row because this is going to be really simple. All right. So I'm going to pick that same account that I've already authenticated. I'm even going to pick that same Google Sheet because I want to do it on that same Google Sheet. All right. So I'm going to pick that simple Zap. This time I'm going to pick my action sheet. All right. So now I'm going to pick my action sheet, and then it's telling me, hey, I have an email field. So I'm going to map in my data from my other side. And I'm going to map in my name from my other side. All right. So if you're not following what's going on at any time, just stop me and say, hey, John, I'm not understanding. All right. But if you notice, what Zapier is allowing me to do is it's allowing me to actually get data from my trigger. All right. So Zapier kind of works in a linear sequence. All right. So Zapier kind of works in a linear sequence where I've got my trigger here. All right. So here's my trigger, and let's call this step 1. All right. And here's my action. All right. This is this guy, and this is this guy right here. This is step 2. All right. This is step 2. And inside step 2, I can access any data from step 1. Now, if I want to go add another step here, step 3. Inside this, I'll be able to access any data from step 1 and any data from step 2. And as you can imagine, if I add another step, if I add a step number 4, even though I can't draw very well, I would be able to access any data from step 1, any data from step 2, any data from step 3. All right. So as you add more and more steps, Zapier will allow you to access all that previous data that you've got in from your trigger or that you've manipulated and done something with in your previous steps. And you'll see as we get farther along in the training that you can even perform mathematical calculations. You can change your different data. You can do all sorts of cool stuff with Zapier. It's amazing. It's really amazing. All right. So now I'm just accessing data from my previous step here. So I'm just grabbing data from my previous step, and I'm going to put that in there. All right. So now hopefully you understood everything that was here. We went in, and we just picked our spreadsheet that was required. We picked our worksheet that was required, and we mapped to these fields in our spreadsheet, in our trigger spreadsheet, in our action spreadsheet. We mapped to these 2 fields. We mapped data coming from our trigger step. All right. So now I want you to understand that you have this preview here. If you turn this off, then it's just going to tell you what this data is. If you turn it on, it's going to show you a live preview of the data that's actually going to be put there. So now we're going to hit continue. And now we can go in and you can go ahead and test this out, or you can skip the test if you want. I like to always test it. So I'm going to test this out. And if you look, now if I look over here, I've got my data. All right. Now I'm missing a piece of data, but that's no big deal. It's just for a test. All right. So we're just going to delete this guy right here. And we're going to come back over here and we're going to delete this poopy guy. All right. We don't like this poopy guy, so we're getting rid of that poopy guy. All right. So now I can keep adding more steps if I want, or I can just say that I'm finished. All right. Now, if you notice, once I'm finished, I can have the choice to put this in one of my folders. It's already in one of my folders to keep everything nice and organized. You need to make sure you give it a name. You don't have to give it a name, but you really want to give it a name for organization, and then just turn your Zap on, just like that. All right. So now what you need to understand is some Zaps. Now we've created our first Zap. All right, now that we've created our first Zap, before I let you understand anything else, I'm just going to show you how it works. It's going to be really straightforward. I'm just going to put in here John Vaughn and put in here john@thinkvaughn.com. All right, so I put that here. I want you to notice that if I go to my action, it is not here. So I'm going to go back to Zapier. I'm going to tell Zapier to run this automation. Zapier is going to say, hey, look, I'm going to run that automation, and guess what? It's going to stick that data right there for me. All right. So if I want to keep doing this and say j@v.com, and then come in here and say pj@sandwich.com, and if I want to keep doing this, you know, some guy at some.com. If I want to keep doing this, and I can come over, you'll notice that none of this data is over here yet. And then you'll also notice that if I come over here to Zapier and I tell Zapier to run this automation, Zapier is going to run that automation, and look, the data is just getting popped in there automatically, just like magic. It's great. So anyways, now you know how to create a simple automation, and we've actually went in and created a very simple automation.